It is Juanita Coley, affectionately known as the Contact Center Whisperer. And I am so fortunate today. I'm sitting in the NICE headquarters over here in London, and I am talking with the Jonathan. Okay, Wax. He is VP over at NICE Next CX Analytics. Okay, we're just going to say CX Analytics. But before we hop right in, okay, John, tell me a little bit more about your role, what you're doing over at NICE.
Okay, so I currently responsibility for let's call it the CX analytics solution. So NICE, as you're probably aware, is quite a large software company and has grown both by natural inherent growth, but also through acquisition. And part of that acquisition trail has been about 6 years ago, they bought Nexidia, and that's where I came from. So I've been working in, let's call it the contact center analytics space for about the last 18 years. So I was with Nexidia for 12 years. We then became part of NICE, and then we got merged into with some of the other analytical solutions that NICE has. So really now that we've got the whole drive into the CXI space, it's really, I think, all of the products come under this CX analytics umbrella. But the Nexidia piece is just one part of it. There's other elements too. But my responsibility now is owning that, helping set the strategy for that at the EMEA level, and driving the sales efforts across Europe.
So I want to talk more about when you guys did the was it an acquisition or was it a merger?
Oh, there was an acquisition. No, it was not a hostile. It was a very friendly acquisition. But so yeah, it was about six years ago. We got brought into the NICE portfolio. Let's put it that way.
So tell me more about that. Like, what made NICE decide? Hey, what was the consumer saying that made NICE say, hey, we need to look at Nexidia?
I think so. NICE did have an it's fair to say NICE had an analytics of product. It was also, I think it was called NICE Interaction Analytics, and they had been so Nexidia was set up in 2000, and I think the now NICE Analytics product came out not much later than that, 2002. But I suppose the blunt answer is, in a number of major North American accounts, NICE was losing to Nexidia. And I think, it was, if you can't beat them, join them, or in this case, if you can't beat them, join with them and acquiring them. And so the acquisition started in late 2015 and completed in early 2016. And so I think that was the driving force in North America. Coincidentally, in Nexidia we supported quite a large number of languages, including a number of European languages. So actually, there was a lot of synergy over in Europe as well. We were able to get into markets that NICE had a presence in, countries that Nexidia never had. So we were able to expand into Europe as well.
So beyond presence, right? Yeah. If you were talking to a agent, like an agent that's on the phones, or if you were talking to a call center supervisor, and you had to explain, because when we say things, one of the things that I'm really big on, especially with my background coming from being an agent on the phones to working in workforce management, to now consulting contact centers and technology companies, is verbiage, right? We say a lot of industry terms like CX and EX, interactions, analytics, AI. We say all of these words. And I think a lot of times it gets lost. The consumer is lost in that. And so what happens is they get something and then they don't get full user adoption out of it because they didn't understand it in its full capacity in the first place. So with that being said, if you had to explain Nexidia to an agent or a operations supervisor, when you say interactions or analytics, what are you analyzing?
Okay, so let's start the starting point. If you work for a company in one of their contact centers, what are you doing? You are engaging with their customers. So you're either going to be on a phone if it's traditional voice call, or you could be on a web chat or a social media feed or whatever. But you are taking part in a dialogue with an end user customer.
Yes.
If each one of those in its entirety is is an interaction. So yeah, it doesn't matter what the platform is, so during the course of the day, I've had 20, I suppose as a person, a human being, we'd talk at a conversation, wouldn't we? You say, I had a really nice conversation today with Juanita, or however it is. So the starting point is, as an agent, you're going to have a set of conversations during the course of the day. So that's what the interaction is. The analysis bit is really saying, is there a way of programmatically understanding what happened during the course of that conversation? I think one of the classic ones is, if you have a call center with, I don't know, 500 agents, say, if you wanted to know what happened on all of those conversations, because you believe there is some data in there that's important to the agents, to the company, to the customers, how do you do it? Traditionally you would have to re-listen to the conversation, or reread it if it's a transcript, a text-based one, and that takes longer than the actual conversation. So if you had 500 agents to listen to all their calls, you'd probably need to employ 600-700 people, and economically no one's ever going to do that. So when we talk about analysis here, it's a technology programmatically effectively listening to, or reading, if depending what it is, that conversation, so that you can use it to improve your business. I mean, typically you can use it mainly to improve business outcomes, and improving the business outcomes could require a change of a product or a change of a process, and most of the time it's actually being able to better coach the individual agents. So it's being able to turn around and go, right, when you had your coaching session the other week, you said, but that's just not a typical call. And it may not have been, but there was no way of proving it. If you're using an analytical system, it can show you all the times when you are really good, and it can show you all the areas where you have strength, but it can also show you the areas where you need room for development, need to look at, or maybe it's something you've never dealt with before and it's just an educational session. So for the individual agent, it gives you the ability to have, actually, I think, a really good basis for your own personal development. For the company, it gives you the ability to be able to improve the overall efficiency of the organization, and if you get those two right, logically it means that for the end user customer, they're probably going to have a better experience at the end of it as well.
That's amazing. So effectively, when we're talking about Nexidia, we're talking about the ability to listen to and understand, right?
Yeah.
Because it may not be listening, it may just be looking at the transcriptions of chats, right? Yeah. So regardless of the channel, whether we're talking about voice, whether we're talking about chat, web transcriptions, we're effectively able to listen and look at these interactions in bulk, in bulk, and be able to identify trends, be able to identify use cases, be able to identify things that are happening in the business where we wouldn't have normally, where we would have only been able to do that very segmented or a very small population, or cost us lots of money, right, to be able to staff a team of people. I remember being in the contact center space as a workforce analyst, and we would have to look at mass amounts of data. And so that effectively made our workforce management team much bigger because of the amount of analysis that it took. So we're being able to shrink down the amount of staff that it takes required to do that, as well as also be able to get a larger size. And in some cases, I'm assuming you would be able to get all of the data. Yeah. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it comes down to, I remember ages ago, there was a quote, I think it was a guy who ran one of the hotel and casino chains in Vegas. And the quote was, do you think or do you know? And this is, because how many times do decisions get made when, the agents say this always happens at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday. Right. Maybe it does, maybe that, but if you actually analysed all the calls, you get a spike on a graph, whatever, you go, it does happen at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday. So it's basically allowing you to make decisions based on knowledge, not gut feeling, or I think it is, or someone's word.
Yeah, knowledge like, and so imagine how powerful that can be if I could pull, let me see, all the calls where my competitor's name is mentioned,
Yeah.
right? Effectively, that's what we're saying is going to be happening, right? I can
Yeah.
listen to all the calls, and if my competitor's name is mentioned, pull me all of those calls, or pull me all the calls when this is said,
Yeah.
or pull me all the chats when this kind of close is used
Yeah.
or not used. Does it work in the adverse as well? Not,
Yeah.
any transaction or interaction that did not say this or didn't use this verbiage, then pull these interactions.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, ages ago, we got involved in with a customer, and they knew they had a call spike, and that was the volume. I mean, when I say call spike, it was for weeks. The volumes just went up, and internally they had three ideas, which it was, one of which was something a competitor had done. One of which was something they had a communication they'd sent out, and then the third one, I can't remember exactly what the third one was, but basically the ownership of each of these three different things was in a different part of the company. So no one really wanted to hold their hand up saying, yeah, I caused the call volumes to go up so massively. So there was a bit of an internal row, I think is the best way of putting it. And we were basically to go, we did the analysis and said, actually, if you look at the calls, it was all down to, and it was actually in this case, it was the internal action. This letter communication they'd sent out caused people to ring up,
Nice.
so it's very powerful. Like, as I say, not everyone would have liked that end result, but it proved exactly what we said.
Exactly. Yeah, I remember we used to get these spikes. I'll leave the name of the company out, right? But I remember we would randomly get these spikes, and I was in the workforce management department, and what was happening, what we discovered, and this was at a time we had to go as the RTA, we had to ask on the floor, hey, ask the agents, hey, do you know what's happening? What kind of calls are you hearing, so forth and so on. And we discovered what was happening is that the billing department was sending out a billing statement off cycle. So that was prompting extra calls to be coming in. And this would happen sporadically, like maybe this month they for whatever reason forgot to send the bill, and so it was sent out off cycle.
Yeah.
And every time that happened, which it wasn't like it was every month, but it was occasionally, it was sporadic enough to where we couldn't catch a trend that, hey, this is when it's going to be sent out off cycle. And I can only imagine the amount of time I would have saved, my team would have saved from having to, hey, this is back in the day. So this is when, you floor walked and asked agents, hey, what kind of calls are you hearing? Why are we getting a spike? And then they would tell you, oh, I've gotten back-to-back calls about my bill issue or whatever the case may be. So imagine how powerful that would have been. So that's pretty cool. So I have this question just popped in my head. So I am interested.
Yep.
I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this. So, Jonathan, as the VP, okay, of CX Analytics, Nexidia, I am interested. When was the last time that you listened to calls? Do you ever get a chance to now?
Yes. So I would say indirectly, but we as part of our sales approach, we normally do what we call a proof of concept. And for us, a proof of concept is the customer provides us with a set of interactions, and again, voice or chat, but still predominantly voice. And we perform a set of analysis to support a business case. And when we do those, I would say the people within the team who are doing the analysis, on the day we deliver a POC, I would suggest they probably know more about the data. They probably know the customer's calls than nearly anyone in the customer. As part of our prep process for that, we listen to a number of calls. So to your point, we delivered one about 6 weeks ago. So I've listened to a random selection of calls this year, but I think it's really important from a sales perspective, it's because, you can talk theoretically, but if you can say, and by the way, high level X is happening, but I listened to a call where one of your agents did X dot 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 whatever it is, it becomes very, very, very powerful. So I have actually listened. So in the last doing this job last 18 years, I have actually listened to a lot of calls. I've even listened to some calls that I don't understand. So they're in language that I don't understand. But that's an aside.
That's
but yeah,
amazing.
I still do listen to calls.
That's amazing. I think that's so cool because as you're making decisions and you're marketing and you're talking about all of these things from this level, right, and perspective, I think it's so cool that you still get a chance to really listen to calls, see what's happening so that you can evolve and make the product still, true to customer. I think a lot of times what I've seen is that especially inside of tech companies, is that they're creating things that in theory sounds really good, but and when we think about it tactically or from a practical standpoint, it's like this. But this is not how I would use this in real life. Like the practitioner, maybe it's the speech analytics department or the quality department or the reporting or the workforce management people. A lot of times the practitioner is banging their head like, why would they put this here? Why would they do it like this? So I think that's super cool that you still get a chance to listen to calls and actually use, do proof of concept with customers before they're launching it. Tell me, what do you think? I have this question and I'll let you go because I can literally talk about this for forever. I have two questions. What do you think? What do you think is next for Nexidia? And we'll answer that question. What do you think is next for Nexidia?
So I think the world. So going back to your point about technology and technology companies, and there is definitely a drive towards a more digital world, and I think a lot of this is driven by, I'd say, my personal view, it's driven by one thing more than anything else. That one thing is demographics. It's driven by the demographics of the customers. My parents' generation probably won't be doing much off WhatsApp or whatever. But they'll still be picking up the phone. And as long as that generation is there, we'll still have those contacts. And I think a lot of the digitization will be, like my daughter's generation who don't like using the phone. So but over and above that, companies are trying to move to digitization for a number of reasons, cost being one of them, but also just overall business efficiency and effectiveness. There's so many things you can do in a digital channel that you can't do. And I think we talk about interaction analytics, like we talk about contact centers rather than call centers, and I think that it's not new, but I think we've got a good 5 to 10 years of that still ahead of us, because I think if you look at most operations, they're not quite at where the marketing position is. So I think that's the first one. The second one, we're starting to see it come out now. And something like the vulnerable customers piece we work on now as part of that is the use of AI-based models, machine learning models, to take away a lot of the activity to create the categories that we're looking at within analytics. So a classic one is, if you look at an old school quality form, one of the questions is also, did the agent show empathy? And this wonderful question, how do you prove empathy? I can't say, I answered that question empathetically, didn't I?
Right.
It doesn't work that way. But if you listen to the totality of the question, at the end of it, you can make an assessment. And now your assessment would be different to mine, which would be different to Ashling's or whoever, but an AI model can actually turn around and go, on a scale of 1 to 100, that scores 50. And whether you think that's right or wrong, in a sense, it doesn't matter, because every call like that will be 50. And then all you have to do is you move your buckets, as it were, where you think that's good about it. So I think that's the primary change I think we'll see over the next 5-10 years, 5 years probably, is digitization will become real. The digital channels will become real and integrate. And when I say, a lot of them are out there, but they'll become integrated into the overall business operations, and we will be using far more AI technology, especially in the analytics space, to start creating, categorizing, doing a lot of, if you think of it, if you had an AI model that could do summarization, so no agent ever had to write an after call comment again, wouldn't that be brilliant? I mean, every call in the world, you'll save 30 seconds. I don't know what it is.
Can you imagine? Can
Yeah.
you imagine where average handle time would go?
Yeah. So that's where I think we're going.
Yeah. My last question, as I promised, because I could keep you here for forever. What do you wish people knew about your role and what you do day to day that people never ask?
That's a very interesting question. I mean, I think there's probably, and again, I'm going to give you two answers. There's an internal answer and an external answer. Internally, I think, like a lot of companies, we have processes and structures and, stuff that we have to go through. And I would say the people who work for me probably don't realize how much of that goes on. But I think, externally, I would say, if I look back and say, what have you done? Like, what have you done? What have you done today, or what have you achieved? And I think I would turn around and go, I think actually creating an awareness. I mean, I think you mentioned. I think you're going to Call Center Expo, or there's the Call Center Expo in the UK next 2 days. If you go there and talk to people, most people will talk about analytics as if they understand. To your point, as if they're in the center. Whether they do or not, it doesn't matter. The fact is, they're all talking about analytics. 15 years ago, they weren't. And I think, a lot of what I've done has been to create an awareness and an understanding of what analytics can do. And again, that should be at both what it can do for a customer, what it can do for a business, but also what it can do for the individuals, the agents who work there. Because if you can get those three. If you get that's your triangle of success. If you can do something that improves all three of them,
yes.
Why would you not do it?
Yeah, I love that. Customer, business, agent. If you can improve all three, why wouldn't you? Yeah. And I think that should be the standard. I think that should be the standard, is improving business, improving customer, improving agent. That's so important. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today. I'm super excited to see, I'm a true workforce management girl at heart. So data, I love looking at data. I could stay there for forever. So I'm super excited to see what comes from Nexidia and, what you all are doing around the analytics and making it actionable. It's one thing to have all of this data at your fingertips. It's another to allow it to fuel and empower the business and, like you said, the customer and the employee, so that we can have a better future, better communications. I think that's really what it's all about. The reason we want this data, the reason we want the analytics, is that we can have better experiences. Like you guys always say, make experiences flow. And the only way we can do that is through having better insights and then actioning on those insights. So I'm super excited to see. I can gush all day about, data. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today, Jonathan.
My pleasure, Juanita, and enjoy your time in London.
Thank you. I will. All right, guys, until next time. See y'all later. Bye. Thank you.